Burning Crusade Classic. It's about time we talked about it and some other stuff that's going on. Classic WoW. You think you do, but you won't. I said that in the old radio style series a while back. And how things have panned out. So I knew that it would be a vanilla experience, but not the vanilla experience. Let's get that fired up again. I knew that WoW Classic would be a vanilla experience, but not the vanilla experience. It would not be the same as when I played the original game back in the day, and it was. I mean, there's a lot of things that people have done. They've tinkered, the Blizzard has tinkered with a couple of things here and there, and they've done some other stuff as well. But one of the big things here that we got to talk about with what's happened is I was right. No. I said there'd be a long, slow decline, and here we are. Not necessarily the way I thought it would go. I think Blizzard understood the issues that having an MMO with a fixed end would have, and they did a darn good job trying to stretch out the original vanilla World of Warcraft content as much as they possibly could. And now we're at the point, oh yeah, let's release TBC Classic. But some things have changed with regards to these old games that I think that a lot of people commenting on them aren't really talking about here. And that is this. We now live in a day and age where MMOs are compartmentalized. It's the sort of thing where you have this stuff going on and MMOs are compartmentalized these days. Classic was split off from the regular World of Warcraft game, and now Burning Crusade Classic is going to get split off from the original Classic. So the game is just getting more and more split. That should send a message that maybe, just maybe, the Classic experience is going to be different than what we originally went through. Let's go, let me look at this tweet from Asmongold here. So Asmongold pops on and says, it's disappointing Blizzard has taken the Classic community's willingness to change as an invitation to add literal level boosting and potentially paid mounts. It's even more disappointing that so many people will defend and enable it. I said it's 2021, not 2007. People will have different attitudes towards this expansion. In my case, I'll essentially buy the boost to get my BC characters back and have characters in both Classics. But the thing with Asmongold is, Asmongold's a persona. If you've seen Zach's Treehouse videos, you'll know that the professional neckbeard who lives with his mom and plays WoW all day is part of the act. So, it's part of what Asmongold's all about. But I find it interesting that Asmongold is one way on stream, another way on Twitter, and another way in his Treehouse videos. So, that tells me, he knows what he's doing in terms of giving the audience what they want, which is World of Warcraft obsessed neckbeard, as he calls it. But every time he posts an incendiary tweet like this, I have to ask, is this part of the act? That's the thing. So, and he said that let's see here. I had the same outlook as you until I watched Mad Season's video and had insight of how it will massively increase botting and its ease of access. Now I'm completely against the boost. If you don't like it, play retail. They literally made that game for people exactly like you. Don't bring this crap into Classic. Keeping things family friendly here. Nothing about boosts or paid mounts simulates the TBC experience. Well, let's get to this, shall we? Microsoft Edge. We shall make use of Microsoft Edge here. Put that on the screen, get my mug off into the corner where it belongs. Anyways, Microsoft Edge. Autolink? No, of course not. Security stuff. Link it up. Here's the key difference right here between World of Warcraft and Classic, and that is that it is compartmentalized. So, the way it's going to work is when TBC Classic goes live, all existing Classic realms become Burning Crusade Classic realms. And then there's going to be realms that stay regular Classic that you then will have a paid service to copy a character to, or clone a character, or whatever it is. So, the question that you got to ask yourself is, how is this in any way recreating the original WoW experience? It's not. It's a retro experience. And we know that Classic had some things modified compared to original vanilla. Quality of life, spell batching, all kinds of other stuff. But the big issue is that Classic really forged, Classic really created something new, essentially an old MMO being deliberately recreated to be old in some way, shape, or form. So what we have with Classic is something that is new. You didn't get to, de-level your characters back to 60 or anything. You had to start over. And Classic is separate from the main game. I joked about the idea back then of a classic mode where you could experience pre-Cataclysm Azeroth in the game via like Bronze Dragonflight and stuff. But even that would only give you old school WoW with modern amenities, just like what playing Burning Crusade in retail gives you right now. And that's probably the number one difference here between these two classics, is that Burning Crusade still exists. You can still play it. Outland is still there. It's known as probably, if you want to compare old WoW to new WoW, Burning Crusade is arguably going to be a better option than Vanilla was, because Vanilla was replaced by Cataclysm when Cataclysm came out. So this is the part to make all the videos about World of Warcraft then and now, because you can literally play both games. Burning Crusade is actually still playable in retail. That's the important part. When Classic first launched, there was the argument, for example, about how classic should Classic be? Should there be like Dungeon Finder or something? Well, there is no argument with TBC Classic, because Burning Crusade is in the game. If you want to run BC dungeons, have a character in the level range, go into Chromie time, lock your character at 49 or whatever if you need to. Again, World of Warcraft's level 49 problem. And you can Burning Crusade to your heart's content in the regular game. It's that simple. You can Burning Crusade to your heart's content with modern amenities in the retail game right now. Now, here's the issue that I have with Mad Season and Asmongold. They are both, just like me, longtime WoW players who have experience going back into the knots or whatnot with this game. They're both longtime WoW players, and as such, they're going to be biased towards viewing these classic products like a longtime WoW player. But I can tell you, despite what Blizzard's doing with the boost and everything, and with the clone services and the character copies and stuff like that, and the paid service to have your character on both types of realms, I can tell you that these classic games are compartmentalized more so than the original game. We as WoW players longtime WoW players are gonna be biased towards having the same experiences with these classics as people did in the original games, but that is just not the case. Blizzard is not doing that. They're recreating the feel of it. It's like the thing I talk about, a tweet S-Fan made where he got upset at somebody because the whole no changes thing. If I can tell you, a lot of the no changes thing is just WoW being WoW. People, there it is. Know what WTF you're talking about before you say it. There's plenty of times in video and stream I talked about how you've got to account for the times. Also, Classic was never no changes, and anyone who doesn't know that doesn't know crap about the game, past or present. Yeah, well, might want to revisit that with what Asmon's saying nowadays. This was nearly a year ago. This was in May of 2020. You guys cried till you got vanilla. Now you want vanilla. Now you want vanilla swirl. I say figure out your flavor. Yeah, well, here's the thing. Back to my Edge browser here. These experiences are both compartmentalized. They are separate from each other. And there's going to be people out there who will not view these two games the same as their original iterations. Especially if you have people that started playing in Burning Crusade. So I'm going to be the one person out there that's willing to admit that there are going to be people out there who are more interested in playing Burning Crusade in its original form again than the original vanilla. And so that's really who these level boosts are going to be for. Oh, well, people can skip the leveling. Yeah, well, if you're mostly interested in Burning Crusade and you played the original game before, it's not like someone who buys a boost like I've seen in dungeon runs where they just do terrible. They can't tank, they can't heal, they can't DPS because they didn't actually play the game. They just boosted their way to max level and they don't know what they're doing. There's probably people out there, maybe they haven't played in many years, And they played in Burning Crusade, so essentially what they're trying to do, especially since you can't take your characters from retail back into Classic, they're just trying to get their characters back. And so I don't even view Burning Crusade Classic as a recreation of Burning Crusade in a sense. I'm looking specifically for it to be a snapshot of pre-Lich King BC. So I don't even want it to resemble patch 301. I want it to resemble patch 2.4, which means rep paladins are going to be garbage, unfortunately. That's when I recorded, for example, the Quel'Danas video of doing Quel'Danas dailies, was using the old rank 1 seal of command and crap like that. But I'm actually trying to figure out, do I want to continue leveling my... I don't want to rush to level my characters just so they're ready for Burning Crusade. I want to... I mean, I stopped leveling around Duskwood, which is perfectly in line, by the way, around like level 31 or something. Because I got bored with Classic, and there were other things to play, ESO, and other stuff like that. So it's not even a matter of I have less time to play video games, it's a matter of there's more interesting video games to play these days. So, Burning Crusade Classic Progression Realms, Classic Era Realms, Stan Azeroth to defend it. That's part of the issue here. Let me also mention a little something that Asmin and Mad Season and some other folks have talked about. Let's go to WoW Wiki here. Whoa, watch your keyboard. Gamepedia. This wiki is merged with its Gamepedia counterpart. Click to join us now in the now combined wiki. All right, Wowpedia. I'm looking for patch 3.2 though. Can I actually search for that on here? Oh, yeah, Wowpedia. I want the info on patch 3.2, which was, there it is, Call of the Crusade. All right, let's put Edge back on the screen here. So Mad Season and Asmongold talk about how Blizzard, one of the biggest things that Blizzard did that hurt World of Warcraft was they turned the game from a game where players have to work to get somewhere to a game where the game bends and twists itself to the players. And I think after the Ulduar patch is when we started seeing that really take off with some of the paid services, the cash shop starting up, but most importantly, catch-up gear. One thing that's not mentioned in Mad Season's video is that catch-up gear became a thing around the time that he said all that other stuff was happening. And that's one of the big things you got to remember, is that once Blizzard made it so you could skip content, big surprise, people stopped following the stories as closely. Now, it could benefit people that played through it originally, who were leveling alts, and they're like, yeah, well, I've seen, you know, I killed Algalon on my main. Why do I have to, you know, do it again and stuff? Do I want to really play through all that story again? Would I just want to go from playing a max level paladin to a max level priest? But at the very same time, you have this going on where new players now, they don't have the same experience and they don't have the same attachment to the stories because there's so many ways to skip things. There's so many ways to gear up, not get the original challenge of certain raids, things like that, not really have anywhere near the experience of the people that went through there the first time. And this is really the pendulum pinnacle moment when we started seeing Blizzard move in this direction. That eventually led to Total Biscuit deciding he was done with the game, and Cataclysm and some other stuff as well. And eventually the decline that has led to what happened today. But what is the key thing here? The key thing to remember is the release date. Call of the Crusade, when things swung the other way, was released in 2009. What's so important about 2009? What was around in terms of World of Warcraft competitors back then? Final Fantasy XIV hadn't become a thing yet. Not even version 1.0. That was 2010. Now, maybe in Japan, but definitely not North America. But there was a thing I used to joke about with some folks, especially when I went on podcasts like Out It Continues. World of Warcraft is not a game to compete with because everybody who wants to play WoW is already playing WoW. But in 2009, what was WoW's competition? Warhammer Online Age of Reckoning? I think Ion might have been coming out at that time as well. Bottom line is, nowadays, you've had the time for other developers making MMOs and even offline games to react properly to World of Warcraft without trying to copy Blizzard. Or in some cases, they tried to copy Blizzard, it didn't work out because Everyone who wants to play WoW is already playing WoW, and they went their own way and created some darn good games in their later iterations. Think Star Wars: The Old Republic started out as World of Warcraft with lightsabers. And now it's a pretty respectable Star Wars game, despite being kind of blue in terms of support. Think Elder Scrolls Online, World of Warcraft with Elder Scrolls paint over it. In the beginning, blah MMO, got more interesting when ZeniMax Online decided to take it more in the direction of the offline Elder Scrolls games, and now it's my favorite MMO. I play it a lot. So, ESO is one of the key reasons why I don't play as much Final Fantasy or don't play as much World of Warcraft. Because there's now viable competition that didn't exist when the pendulum started swinging in 2009. Yeah, Blizzard is responsible with some of their bad decisions, with game design being snooty towards their audience and kind of coasting or resting on their laurels with, oh, we've had the most successful MMO of all time. Yeah, Blizzard's done plenty of that. I talk about Blizzy knows best, that old hashtag. But it wasn't the only reason why World of Warcraft shrunk. There are now viable alternatives to WoW that didn't exist before. It is possible to make a viable alternative to WoW nowadays because companies are actually trying to do different things besides copy Blizzard to some extent. As a matter of fact, some of the more successful MMOs have gone away from trying to copy what Blizzard was doing to some extent here. Some of the more interesting MMOs you can play are not trying to make WoW clones anymore. I mean, there was even one of the many WoW clones that didn't make it. There was even an old WoW clone where they practically ripped off the UI of your character's window, your HP bars, and things like that. It's crazy. But that's the important thing to remember. Okay, yeah, there's been a decline with World of Warcraft in the last several years. Not all of that was because of Blizzard's bad choices. The gaming landscape was changing as well. So going over to what we have today, it's not so much the case that someone's going to buy a boost just because they want to skip leveling and get straight into BC. They're going to buy a boost because they may legit be playing other games and other stuff, so otherwise they won't have any progression whatsoever. Well, what about attunements and stuff? Well, anybody who is nostalgic for Burning Crusade's endgame would be willing to go through all that again. They've done it before. And I'm sure just like what happened with Classic, we're going to have everybody knows how to do everything right from the get-go. You cannot recreate people's naivete when it comes to endgame content or even leveling. So I'm sure just like what happened with Molten Core, especially when people were trying to get elitist about it in Classic, there'll be people clearing the first raids a lot more quickly than they did in the original game because we've had all this time to... We're coming in with all the strategies now. We're not trying to figure it out. So same thing as what happened with Classic. There are people making a big deal about Molten Core when people were blowing through it very, very quickly. Because we already know from our own experience, just passing it on to others, how to field a team that can take down those bosses. So, like it or not, folks, these classic games are not... You still cannot go home again. These classic games are compartmentalized. They're compartmentalized. Burning Crusade Classic is its own thing, separate and apart from the experience you had with Burning Crusade. Regular Classic is its own thing, separate and apart from the experience you had in Vanilla. And when Lich King Classic comes out, which I'm sure there will be one, that'll be its own thing as well. Because beginning with Lich King, that's when we started seeing major class overhauls like Rep Paladins getting changed and stuff like that. So, it's interesting Mad Season talks about, people are just going to blow through the content faster if they can skip leveling through the old world in BC Classic. Indeed, they will. But what's to say that with the success of this game, with regular Classic, that Blizzard isn't going to try and, go through... I mean, you think about it. Vanilla to the Naxxramas patch was a couple of years, but Burning Crusade to the Sunwell patch was, what? 2000... When was Burning Crusade released? Mid-2000s. It was delayed. Burning Crusade release dates. 2007. Yep, and Lich King. January 2007, it got delayed. Otherwise, it would have come out in 2006. Wrath of the Lich King. Let's see, I got another Lich King here. World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King was released November 13th, 2008. Yeah, January 2007, and it would have been Q4 2016 or 2006 if it wasn't delayed, versus 2008. So a year and change. This is in the days before the post-expansion, the end of expansion doldrums and a year of no content and stuff like that. So if Blizzard keeps the same cadence, Burning Crusade Classic will be shorter than Original Classic was. And even Original Classic spanned 2004, 2005, 2006, 3 years, versus 2019, 20. So they roughly kept the same cadence. If they want to keep the progression the same and the advancement the same, we'll be talking about Lich King Classic next year, tops. There'll be something about Wrath of the Lich King Classic a lot quicker than Burning Crusade Classic. Otherwise, it'll just be Blizzard kind of veering from what they're trying to offer here, because Burning Crusade Classic will stick around longer than the original Burning Crusade did before Lich King took over. And that's really it. I mean, if there were certain things you liked about Burning Crusade specifically, this is where you play it. Shockadins, for example. Shockadins were a cute thing people were doing with Holy Paladins, using lamellar gear for plus spell damage and healing instead of just plus healing, and going around with burst damage, because holy damage doesn't have a resistance in the game. So people would shrink it up and they'd gear out, and they'd be blasting things with 3,000 damage per holy shock. Burst damage, no sustained DPS. Seal of the Righteous would judge for a high amount of damage that scaled with your spell damage. These things were mostly a Burning Crusade thing. By Lich King, Holy Paladins couldn't do anything. It was horrible. I mean, you had Beacon of Light, and you could heal 2 people at once, and it was a pain in the neck if you had a Paladin healing something like, what was it? Heroic Halls of Lightning, I think it was? The last boss? Loken. Yeah, the Lightning boss. If you didn't have AoE heals, you suffered badly. So... But I remember trying to play as a Holy Paladin. I was like, I want to be Prot or Ret. I don't want to be Holy. Because you had like horrible like Judgment of the Pure and stuff like that. Ah, so terrible. The Shockadin era was 100% Burning Crusade. So if you want to max out a Shockadin for PvP or even try it in PvE, you know, this is exactly the kind of non-time limited environment, unlike the original Burning Crusade, for this to happen. This is the actual place to do that. That's one of the key differences between these classics and their original iterations, is there is no time limit on that. You'll be able to lock your character in vanilla forever with the classic realms that are going to come out. And Burning Crusade will have the same thing when Lich King Classic launches, I hope. Otherwise, Blizzard's kind of backing off on some things. But back in the days of Burning Crusade, Blizzard talked about concentrated coolness, which is where I learned the term from, and that is that people are interested in what makes things special, what makes the game special, what makes classes special, what makes everything special in these games. People are interested in that specifically. So, with Burning Crusade Classic, it is its own thing. Yeah, it might have bot problems and stuff just like Classic eventually did, but we're talking about games that are different than their original iterations. Whether we like it or not. It's vanilla versus vanilla swirl all over again. And I can tell you, excuse me, the reason why I would buy a boost for Burning Crusade Classic is to make a version of my character straight at level 58 without having to rush through the rest of vanilla. There's some things that were specific to vanilla, but I don't want to be rushing through vanilla in order to play BC. I already did that before, sort of. My original vanilla experience was I went up to 40, got bored with the game, and then stopped. Came back after playing a Newgrounds game where you played World of Warcraft in Elwyn Forest as a Murloc. And then by then we were close to the expansion. I got to level 50 by the time the expansion was on the radar. just a little more leveling to go off to Hellfire Peninsula. I was not in Hellfire Peninsula on day one when it was overcrowded all to heck, like it'll probably be when TBC Classic launches with all the boosted characters boiling in Hellfire, which, by the way, is something that would make it more authentic, is to have Hellfire completely overloaded on day one. That would make it more authentic to what Burning Crusade originally was. So, but even still, my character's development and interest in the game is far more tied to Burning Crusade than the original game. Far more tied. So it's not a problem for me. It's not a problem for me to buy a boost. I don't want to barrel through the rest of Classic and not get to enjoy it in order to start Burning Crusade at 58 or 60. I would much rather essentially have a version of my character. I'll activate my main character on a Classic realm and then be very, very gladly just boost to 58 because, I've already played Burning Crusade. What I'm specifically looking for from Burning Crusade Classic is a non-time limited ability to progress my Shakadin, because Burning Crusade was the heydays of various BC specific builds. You had Shakadins, you had SL Warlocks, you had MS Warriors, you had all kinds of specs in the talent system that people were toying with all the time, trying to find ways to have goofball builds and things like that. So there were holy prot paladins in Arena. There were smite priests trying to do the same thing as Shakadins, but with a priest casting holy spells. There are all kinds of things. People that spent time poring over the talent calculators would come up with ideas for builds and characters and things like that. And, I mean, there was always the meta in the raids. You had to be this spec and whatnot. And then there were some issues with the game design. For example, Protection Paladins were gimmicky. They were gimmicky porcupine tanks that lacked a few key things to handle the crushing blows, as well as the warriors did. Even the taunt had to be macroed in order to work like a warrior's taunt. It wasn't like today. But paladins would go around with a mage sword, and they'd actually use spell damage to generate threat. That got changed in Lich King to where prop paladins are using strength. But there's got to be a lot of goofing around with builds that are going to be specific to Burning Crusade. And so even if the boost became something that was unlimited, I guarantee you there'd be people that would love that because they may remember a character they had and not want to grind out 1 to 58 again because they've already done it. They've already played it before. And this kind of meta, classic-specific approach to these games is precisely the reason why I don't have a problem with the boost. Yeah, there'll be botters, but that's on Blizzard. You can't be stressing out about something that the company isn't doing. Blizzard needs to be... I mean, when people aren't playing these classic games because the economy's broken because of bots, that's, that should send a message to Blizzard that they spent the time developing this stuff and people aren't enjoying them. Why? Especially when, part of this whole classic thing is things are going to be compartmentalized. So if people are not enjoying Vanilla Classic, or Vanilla Swirl, according to some people, if people aren't enjoying Vanilla Classic, Blizzard has to ask why and fix it, because otherwise they have a product just like, blah, whatever. They spent all the time making it, and now nobody likes it, when they clearly liked it before. Classic did so well in its initial surge in popularity when it first launched that it affected the design choices for Shadowlands. So, but even still, it's not the original game all over again, and Burning Crusade Classic is going to have the same problems as regular Classic in terms of being a game with a World of Warcraft with a fixed endpoint. And if Blizzard does their job, and BC Classic is current for roughly the same time as the original Burning Crusade, people will arrive at the endpoint faster than in Vanilla Classic, Vanilla Swirl, or whatever. So TBC Classic, I expect to have a shorter lifespan, because the original game had a shorter lifespan. But it would be fun, though, to have characters locked into Burning Crusade, and then toy around with builds and stuff like that. It'll especially be interesting if the max characters on Classic are separate for each version of it. So, max characters on regular Classic and a max characters on TBC Classic separate from each other. So you can experiment with different builds in different games. So, we'll see how it goes. But I agree with Asmongold on store mounts, though. I do agree with Asmongold on store mounts. So, store mounts are stupid. That stupid horse mount that came out in Lich King, I mean, this just shows that if Blizzard could have made the silly horse before Lich King, they probably would have done it. But that's the first signs of the Blizzard we know today. But the boost, I don't have a problem with. It'll cause problems in the game, and Mad Season did a pretty good job talking about why it's going to cause problems in the game. The big thing is, he's talking about it from the perspective of a longtime WoW player who has experienced vanilla, going to BC, going to Lich King, the progression of it all. And eventually regression, of course, when WoW stopped doing so well. But that's not what these games are. These games are individual, they're compartmentalized, and you have character copies, you have character clones, I should say, between them. They are all going to be their own thing. When Lich King Classic is a thing, Burning Crusade Classic is going to have its own unique player base of people specifically looking for Burning Crusade. And then there's going to be the same thing with Lich King. Maybe someone liked how Rep Paladins played in Lich King, or maybe people liked how in Lich King all 3 specs of Death Knights could play all the roles. So they could tank and DPS. So I was a Blood Death Knight DPS. Didn't even play my Paladin as much because it was fun. A little contrived, didn't make much sense to be a Vampire Knight. And there were people that were arguing over whether or not the Death Knight should use diseases as Blood spec DPS. But it was part of Lich King. Part of the Lich King experience was tinkering with all that stuff. So, we'll see how it goes. But if you've been playing World of Warcraft for a long time, your views on Burning Crusade Classic are going to be skewed because of your experience. But the truth of the matter is, there's going to be an element of the player base, and there's going to be an element of who plays these games for whatever reasons that are looking specifically for the classic experience without the classic drawbacks. So I will definitely get around to playing TBC Classic at some point. Got a lot of other games I'm playing right now, and I'm behind on MMOs to the point where I have entire expansions sight unseen in Final Fantasy and even WoW. Haven't touched Shadowlands yet because I'm playing other stuff. But at this point, I definitely want these products to exist, and even if there's a bot problem or something, that's on Blizzard to fix. They have to realize what they're doing with these classic experiences and stick to it. Otherwise, they're going to have empty servers. Stuff like that. It's also something we have to say as well. We got to see what happens to regular Classic after TBC Classic goes live. Whoa, must be getting closer to sunset. Things are brighter instead of dimmer. Oh, daylight savings time. This is kind of my first stream with daylight savings and stuff like that. But either way, yeah, so I don't agree with Asmongold on the whole boost thing. I think boosts have their place, but the big thing we got to remember as longtime WoW players of any kind who played any expansion or whatnot, that these classic programs and whatnot, these classic games are their own thing. They're going to be their own experience. They will be different. No changes was something that was just used to get people upset. And World of Warcraft has had plenty of people trying to get each other upset over the years. It's a toxic game with toxic players. It's been a magnet for toxic people for decades at this point. Nope. World of Warcraft was League of Legends before League of Legends was League of Legends. I've said that how many times? Either way. TBC Classic, I'll check it out, but I do not expect it to be the same as Burning Crusade. And I don't expect it to be the same as Vanilla Classic either. Vanilla Swirl. But the boost, it will have its benefits, but not in the way that the Mad Seasons and the Asmongold's of the world may think. It will have its drawbacks, though. But fundamentally, this whole idea of somebody looking specifically for BC Classic, as opposed to the original Burning Crusade all over again, is something that these commentators and these personalities need to think about a little more. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay signing off. Thanks for stopping by.